My parents gave my sister's car, bedroom, and reputation to my brother's pregnant girlfriend, then called her dangerous for fighting back. My brother Theo died in a military training accident 3 months ago. The very next day, his pregnant girlfriend Ashley moved into our house, taking over his room and wearing his clothes. My parents welcomed her with open arms, constantly calling her the mother of our grandchild. But my sister Jackie, who is also Theo's twin sister, saw through it immediately. That woman is lying about something, Jackie said at dinner that first night. Mom slammed her fork down. Your brother is dead, and you're attacking his grieving girlfriend? What's wrong with you? I watched Jackie closely over the next few weeks, and saw how her life became hell. Our parents stopped setting a place for her at dinner. When she'd make her own food, Mom would pointedly open windows, saying the smell was disrespectful to Ashley's morning sickness. Dad gave Jackie's car to Ashley because pregnant women need reliable transportation. When Jackie protested, he called her selfish and heartless. Ashley would wear Theo's clothes around the house, and whenever Jackie winced seeing them, our parents would lecture her about supporting the family. But Jackie never turned bitter. She'd leave protein bars on my desk when she noticed I wasn't eating family dinners either. She kept Theo's flag folded perfectly in the living room, dusting it every morning even though Ashley complained it was morbid. When Ashley threw out Theo's baseball trophies claiming they triggered her grief, Jackie retrieved them from the trash and hid them in the garage. She never asked for thanks. She just quietly preserved what she could of our brother. Everything changed the night Ashley cornered me in Theo's room. I was going through his things and found the letter he'd written me before deployment. She caught me in his room and snatched the letter from me. Her face went cold as she read about his plans to break up with her. You're going to throw this away, she said, stepping closer, and you're going to forget you ever saw it. I was frozen against the wall as she grabbed my wrist. Don't make this difficult. I'm carrying his baby. Jackie in the doorway, voice shaking with rage. Get away from him. Ashley immediately started crying, claiming I'd attacked her while she was looking at Theo's photos. Jackie didn't budge. I said get away from him. Now. Ashley ran sobbing to our parents. Within minutes, Dad was dragging Jackie to his office while Mom comforted Ashley. I tried to explain, but Mom cut me off. Jackie's jealousy is getting dangerous. She could have hurt the baby. Dad emerged from his office looking disgusted. Jackie's obsession with Ashley has to stop. She actually accused her of threatening you. A pregnant widow. He turned to me. You need to stay away from Jackie. She's unstable. Ashley stood behind them, rubbing her belly with dry eyes. The next morning, our parents changed the locks while Jackie was at work. When she came home to her things in boxes on the lawn, Ashley watched from Theo's window. The family group chat exploded with messages about Jackie's breakdown and dangerous behavior. Aunts and uncles who'd loved Jackie her whole life blocked her number. Our grandmother said she would be removing her from her will. Someone posted on Facebook that Jackie had attacked her brother's pregnant girlfriend, and it went viral in our town. Jackie lost her job when customers complained about being served by someone who'd assault a pregnant woman. I saw her sleeping in her car outside the cemetery. Another night I found her sitting against his headstone with tears streaming down her face. You're the only one who knows I'm not crazy, she sobbed. We sat there for an hour before she wiped her eyes. I need to show you something about Ashley. Theo told me things before he died. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. He sent me messages about her. But first, you need to know why she really wanted that letter from you. Her voice broke as she began. Theo found out Ashley was already married, so their wedding was a sham. And about the baby. She showed me Theo's texts from the week before he died. He'd discovered she was cheating on him. There's more, Jackie whispered. The baby isn't even Theo's. He said he stopped sleeping with her before she got pregnant. She leaned against the headstone. I've been trying to protect everyone, but they think I'm the monster. And now she has our whole family. I stared at the evidence, finally understanding why Jackie had fought so hard despite losing everything. She'd known from the beginning what Ashley was. Someone who saw Theo's death as an opportunity, who'd orchestrated taking over our family before he was even buried. She's going to destroy them, Jackie said quietly, and they'll thank her for it. I stared at the messages on Jackie's phone, my hands trembling as I scrolled through conversation after conversation. Theo had discovered everything weeks before his death. Ashley's marriage certificate to someone named Brandon, dated 3 years ago. Bank statements showing regular transfers between their accounts. Photos of them together at restaurants while Theo was on base. Jackie wiped her eyes and stood up from the headstone. She brushed dirt off her jeans and helped me to my feet. The cemetery was empty except for us, the October wind rattling through bare branches overhead. We walked toward the parking lot in silence. Jackie's car wasn't there anymore, just my bike leaning against the fence where I'd left it. She stuffed her hands in her pockets and kicked at a loose piece of gravel. I heard a car engine behind us. Mom's SUV pulled into the cemetery entrance, and my stomach dropped. Ashley sat in the passenger seat, her face pressed against the window. The car stopped 20 feet away. Ashley stepped out first, one hand pressed protectively against her belly. She moved slowly, deliberately, making sure we saw every gesture. Mom followed, her face tight with anger. Ashley's voice carried across the distance between us, cold and controlled. Even here, you two conspire against a grieving mother. Several other visitors at nearby graves turned to look, their faces uncomfortable at the confrontation. I noticed how Ashley's hand covered her stomach, but something seemed off. The shape beneath her loose sweater looked smaller than it should for someone 5 months pregnant. When she shifted her weight, the bump didn't move naturally with her body. Jackie stepped slightly in front of me. She didn't speak, just stood there with her shoulders squared. Mom marched toward us, her heels clicking on the asphalt path. The other cemetery visitors pretended not to watch, but I saw them glancing over. An elderly couple packing up flowers, a woman kneeling at a grave 3 rows over. Ashley knew exactly what she was doing, creating an audience for whatever came next. Mom reached us first. She grabbed my arm and pulled me away from Jackie. Her fingers dug into my skin through my jacket. Ashley hung back, one hand still on her belly, playing the part of the vulnerable pregnant woman perfectly. Jackie took a step forward, and Mom whirled on her. The slap echoed across the cemetery. Jackie's head snapped to the side, but she didn't raise a hand to defend herself. She just stood there, a red mark blooming across her cheek. The elderly couple hurried to their car. The woman at the grave stood up, clearly debating whether to intervene. Ashley watched it all with satisfaction, her lips twitching into something that wasn't quite a smile. Mom dragged me toward the car. I looked back at Jackie, still standing by Theo's grave, her hand finally touching her cheek. She mouthed something to me, but I couldn't make out the words. Ashley climbed back into the passenger seat, moving with exaggerated care. As Mom shoved me into the back seat, I heard Ashley speaking loudly enough for the remaining visitors to hear about how hard this was for her, visiting her late fiancé's grave while his own family turned against her. We drove through the cemetery gates in silence. Ashley adjusted the rearview mirror so she could see me. Our eyes met for a moment, and her expression was completely different from the grieving mother act she just performed. Cold, calculating, victorious. In the cemetery parking lot, Mom pulled over. Ashley turned in her seat to face me directly. Her hand wasn't on her belly anymore. She leaned forward, and I pressed myself against the car door. Ashley's voice was different now, lower and harder. They'll never believe you over their grandchild's mother. She glanced at Mom, who was gripping the steering wheel and staring straight ahead. Your parents need me. They need this baby. They need to believe I'm carrying a piece of Theo. Mom's knuckles were white on the wheel. She didn't look at either of us. Ashley settled back in her seat, satisfied with her declaration. We drove the rest of the way home in suffocating silence. Dad was waiting in the driveway when we pulled up. He opened my door before the car fully stopped, his face dark with anger. Mom must have called him from the cemetery. He grabbed my shoulder and steered me toward the house. Inside, he pushed me into the living room. Ashley followed slowly, back in character as the fragile pregnant woman. She lowered herself onto the onto the couch with a soft sigh, one hand rubbing her back. Dad paced in front of the fireplace. The family photos on the mantel seemed to watch us. Theo in his uniform, Jackie and Theo at high school graduation, all of us at Christmas last year, a lifetime ago. He stopped pacing and faced me. His voice was controlled but furious. Your behavior has to stop. First, you upset Ashley by going through Theo's things without permission. Then you sneak off to meet Jackie at the cemetery. Do you have any idea how much stress you're putting on a pregnant woman? I opened my mouth to explain, but he cut me off with a sharp gesture. Ashley needs stability. She needs support. The discovery that Ashley's pregnancy timeline doesn't match when Theo stopped being intimate with her explains why Jackie risked everything to protect her family. What she doesn't need is you and Jackie filling her life with drama and accusations. Ashley shifted on the couch, drawing his attention. She touched her belly and winced slightly. Dad's expression immediately softened. He sat beside her, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. Mom appeared in the doorway. She'd been crying, her makeup smeared under her eyes. She looked at me like I was a stranger, someone she didn't recognize anymore. Dad stood up again. His next words hit me like physical blows. Your room will be converted to a nursery starting tomorrow. Ashley needs a safe space, and you've proven you can't be trusted near her. The room spun. My room. The place I'd lived my entire life. The walls covered in posters. My desk where I did homework. My bed where I'd cried myself to sleep after Theo died. All of it would be gone. Ashley's eyes glinted with satisfaction, though she kept her expression carefully neutral. Mom nodded in agreement, not meeting my gaze. They'd already decided this, probably discussed it in the car or earlier. This confrontation was just for show. Dad continued outlining the new rules. I would sleep on the couch until they could set up a cot in the basement. I wasn't to be alone with Ashley. I wasn't to contact Jackie. I wasn't to go through any more of Theo's belongings. Each restriction felt like another bar in a cage. Ashley sat there absorbing it all, occasionally touching her belly or shifting uncomfortably to remind them of her condition. She'd orchestrated this perfectly. When Dad finished, he sent me to start packing. I climbed the stairs on numb legs. My room looked exactly as I'd left it that morning, but it already felt like it belonged to someone else. I pulled out boxes from my closet and began throwing things in randomly. Through my window, I saw our neighbor Mrs. Chen in her garden. She glanced up at the house, and our eyes met briefly. She gave me a small, sad smile before returning to her roses. At least someone had noticed something was wrong. I packed mechanically. Clothes, books, the few photos I had of Theo that Ashley hadn't claimed. My hands shook as I took down posters and emptied drawers. 18 years of life reduced to a few boxes. Ashley appeared in my doorway. She didn't knock, just stood there watching me pack. When I didn't acknowledge her, she stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The click of the latch sounded too loud. She walked to my window and looked out at Mrs. Chen's garden. Your neighbor is very observant, she said conversationally. Always watching, always noticing things. It would be a shame if your parents thought she was helping Jackie spy on us. The threat was clear. Anyone who helped me or Jackie would become a target. Ashley had already turned our parents against us. She could do the same with concerned neighbors, teachers, anyone who might question her story. She turned from the window and surveyed my half-packed room. This will make a beautiful nursery. Theo would have wanted his baby to have the best. She ran her hand along my desk. Of course, we'll have to paint over all this. Start fresh. I kept packing, not trusting myself to speak. Ashley watched for another moment before leaving. Her footsteps were light on the stairs, playing the part of the delicate pregnant woman even when no one was watching. By evening, my room was stripped bare. Dad and two uncles carried my furniture to the garage. Mom supervised, occasionally making comments about paint colors and crib placement. Ashley sat in the hallway, directing the process like a queen on her throne. I spent that first night on the couch, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of my family moving around upstairs. Ashley had taken everything. Theo's room, my room, our parents, our extended family. Jackie was homeless because of her. I was a prisoner in my own house. Around midnight, I heard a soft tap at the living room window. Mrs. Chen stood in her bathrobe on our porch, holding a covered plate. I opened the door as quietly as possible. She pressed the plate into my hands. Homemade dumplings, still warm. She leaned close and whispered quickly, I see that woman meeting a man in a blue sedan every Tuesday while everyone's at work. Same man, same car, same time. Parks 2 blocks over and walks to meet her. Before I could respond, she patted my hand and hurried back to her house. I stood in the doorway, holding the plate of dumplings and processing this information. Ashley was meeting someone secretly, the same day, every week. I closed the door and returned to the couch. The dumplings tasted like comfort, like someone still cared what happened to us. I saved half for breakfast, hiding them behind condiments in the fridge where Ashley wouldn't look. The next morning, construction noise woke me at dawn. Dad had hired contractors to fast-track the nursery conversion. I grabbed my hidden dumplings and escaped to the backyard, eating cold breakfast while workers tramped through my former room. Mom found me there an hour later. She stood awkwardly by the back door, not quite meeting my eyes. I thought she might apologize, maybe show some doubt about what was happening. Instead, she told me to stay out of the workers' way and went back inside. I spent the day at the library, pretending to do homework while actually searching for any information about Ashley's past. Social media yielded nothing. Her profiles were sparse and recently created. No history beyond a few months ago. When I returned home, the nursery transformation was complete. Soft yellow walls, white furniture, a mobile hanging over an expensive crib. Ashley stood in the middle of it all, hands on her belly, playing the grateful mother-to-be for my parents. That night at dinner, she gushed about the nursery while my parents beamed. I pushed food around my plate, thinking about Jackie sleeping in her car, and Mrs. Chen's revelation about the Tuesday meetings. The evidence was mounting, but how could I use it? After dinner, I retreated to the basement where Dad had set up my cot. It was damp and cold, with exposed pipes and concrete walls. A single bulb provided dim light. This was my new reality while Ashley lived like royalty upstairs. I lay on the uncomfortable cot, thinking about Theo's messages on Jackie's phone. He'd known the truth and tried to protect us. Now Jackie was paying the price for that knowledge, and I was next unless I played this carefully. 3 days passed in this new routine. Ashley grew bolder, wearing Jackie's abandoned jewelry and using her favorite coffee mug. She'd make eye contact with me while doing it, daring me to say something. Mom and Dad noticed nothing. On Tuesday, I skipped school. I told Mom I felt sick, and she was too distracted by Ashley's doctor appointment to question it. As soon as they left, I positioned myself at Mrs. Chen's kitchen window, which had a clear view of our street. At exactly 2 p.m., a blue sedan appeared. It parked 2 blocks down, just as Mrs. Chen had said. A man got out, tall, dark hair, wearing jeans and a baseball cap. He walked casually toward our house, checking his phone like any pedestrian. Ashley met him at the back door. They didn't embrace, but their body language was familiar. She handed him something, an envelope it looked like. They talked for several minutes, her gesturing animatedly while he nodded. I tried to get a photo with my phone, but the distance was too great. The man left the same way he came, and Ashley went back inside. The whole interaction took less than 10 minutes, but it confirmed Mrs. Chen's story. That evening, I made a decision. I needed those messages from Theo that Jackie had shown me. They were the only concrete evidence of Ashley's deception. But first, I had to find Jackie. I searched for Jackie at all her usual spots. The gym where she used to work had new staff who wouldn't talk about her. The coffee shop where she studied said they hadn't seen her in weeks. Even her favorite running trail was empty of any sign of her. Finally, I remembered something she'd said about Theo's headstone. I biked to the cemetery after dark, my heart pounding as I navigated the winding paths. There, huddled against a large oak tree near Theo's grave, I found her car. Jackie was inside, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling through her phone. She jumped when I tapped on the window, then quickly unlocked the door. Dark Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her usually neat hair hung limp around her face. She showed me everything again, not just the texts, but emails, photos, timestamps. Ashley had been living a double life the entire time she dated Theo. The evidence was overwhelming, but Jackie explained how Ashley had already poisoned the well. Our parents believed Jackie had the technical skills to fake everything. We sat in her cold car as she pulled up more files. Bank records showing Ashley's joint account with Brandon. Photos from social media that Ashley thought she'd deleted, showing her with Brandon at hotels while Theo was deployed. Even a wedding registry from 3 years ago under Ashley and Brandon Brennan. Jackie had been investigating for weeks, sleeping in her car and using library computers. She'd tracked down mutual friends who confirmed Ashley and Brandon were still together. One even mentioned Ashley bragging about her military meal ticket at a bar. I told her about Mrs. Chen's observation and the Tuesday meetings. Jackie's eyes lit up. It was the first real-time evidence we had. We made a plan. I would document everything I could from inside the house while Jackie worked on getting more proof of Ashley's marriage to Brandon. Returning home, I found Ashley in the kitchen, making tea. She smiled when she saw me, that cold smile that never reached her eyes. She mentioned how nice the nursery looked, how grateful she was for my parents' support. Her hand rested on her belly, but I noticed she forgot to maintain the pose when she turned away. Finally, some real detective work happening here. Jackie's been living in her car near Theo's grave while gathering all this proof, bank records, deleted photos, even an old wedding registry for Ashley and Brandon. The next morning, I started paying closer attention. Ashley's pregnancy symptoms only appeared when my parents were around. Her morning sickness conveniently struck during family meals. Her back pain flared up when there was work to be done. When she thought no one was watching, she moved with perfect ease. I began documenting everything in a notebook I hid in the basement. Ashley's prescription bottles in the bathroom cabinet, anxiety medication, not prenatal vitamins, the way her belly seemed to change size depending on what she wore, how she avoided alcohol when my parents were watching, but I'd seen wine bottles in the trash on days they worked late. Mrs. Chen became my quiet ally. She'd tend her garden when Ashley had visitors, noting license plates and descriptions. She mentioned that the blue sedan belonged to a Brandon Brennan. She'd seen him drop mail once and noted the name. At school, I was falling apart. My grades slipped as I spent every free moment researching Ashley's past. My girlfriend Stephanie grew frustrated with my distraction and constant talk about family drama. When I tried to explain, she said her parents thought our family situation was too unstable. The breakup text came 2 days later. My best friend Marcus stuck around longer, but even he started pulling away. His mom had heard the rumors about Jackie attacking a pregnant woman. She didn't want him associated with our family drama. He apologized as he explained why he couldn't come over anymore, but I saw relief in his eyes. Ashley's control grew tighter. She convinced my parents to give her access to the family phone plan to help with bills during this difficult time. Suddenly, she was monitoring our calls and texts. She had Dad install security cameras, claiming she felt unsafe after the cemetery incident, but I noticed the cameras covered every entrance. No one could come or go without her knowing. One afternoon, I came home to find Ashley in the basement, going through my things. She claimed she was looking for Christmas decorations, but held up the notebook where I'd been documenting her lies. Her smile was triumphant as she tucked it into her pocket. That night at dinner, Ashley mentioned how concerned she was about my mental state. She'd found disturbing notes in the basement, paranoid ramblings about her pregnancy. Dad's face darkened as she spoke. Mom reached over to pat Ashley's hand, assuring her they'd get me help if needed. I realized then how thoroughly trapped I was. Every move I made, Ashley countered. Every piece of evidence I gathered, she explained away or destroyed. She'd positioned herself as the victim so perfectly that even the truth sounded like lies. Jackie texted me from a burner phone, saying she'd found something important. We met at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. She slid a folder across the table, printouts from a private investigator forum where someone had posted about Ashley and Brandon's previous scam. 2 years ago in another state, they'd targeted a young military widow. Same pattern. Ashley claimed to be pregnant with the deceased soldier's child, moved in with the grieving family, gained access to benefits and life insurance. They'd walked away with nearly $200,000 before disappearing. The widow had tried to press charges, but without concrete evidence of the fake pregnancy, it became a he said she said situation. The case fell apart. Ashley and Brandon had learned from that experience, refined their approach. I stared at the papers, feeling sick. We weren't their first victims. They were professionals who specialized in exploiting military families' grief. Theo hadn't just been a boyfriend to Ashley, he'd been carefully selected and targeted. Jackie had more. She'd found Theo's old laptop hidden in a storage unit Ashley didn't know about. On it were searches Theo had done in his final weeks. He'd been investigating Ashley himself, finding many of the same things Jackie had discovered. He'd even drafted an email to our parents exposing everything, but never sent it. The timestamp on the draft was 2 days before his death. We sat in silence, processing the implications. Theo had been about to expose Ashley. Then he died in a training accident. The investigation had ruled it a tragic mishap, but now questions swirled in my mind. Jackie saw my expression and shook her head. She'd had the same thought, but looked into it. Theo's death had been witnessed by dozens of people. Ashley had been states away with Brandon, creating an alibi. It was just horrible timing that benefited her perfectly. Or maybe she'd known something was coming. Maybe Theo had confronted her, and she'd accelerated her timeline. We'd never know for sure. I went home with new determination. Ashley might have control, but she didn't know we had Theo's laptop. She didn't know about the previous scam. Most importantly, she didn't know I'd started recording our interactions on an old phone I'd hidden in the basement. The next Tuesday, I skipped school again. This time, I followed Ashley when she left for her supposed prenatal appointment. She drove to a parking garage downtown, where the blue sedan was waiting. I watched from my bike as she got in. They sat talking for 20 minutes. Through the car window, I could see animated gestures, what looked like an argument. Brandon kept pointing at her belly, shaking his head. Ashley seemed to be pleading with him. Finally, Brandon handed her an envelope, likely cash, based on how she quickly counted it. They talked for another few minutes before Ashley got out. As she walked back to her car, I noticed her pregnancy waddle had disappeared. I followed her to her next stop. Not a doctor's office, but a medical supply store. Through the window, I watched her browsing pregnancy bellies, the kind actors use. She held different sizes up to herself, checking in the mirror. My phone battery died before I could get photos, but I'd seen enough. Ashley's pregnancy was completely fake. Every symptom, every doctor's visit, every ultrasound photo she'd shown my parents, all lies. That evening, I found a moment alone with Dad. I tried to carefully bring up concerns about Ashley, mentioning how her pregnancy seemed inconsistent. His face immediately shut down. He accused me of jealousy, of trying to destroy the only good thing to come from Theo's death. When I persisted, he grew angry. He said I was becoming just like Jackie, unstable, paranoid, cruel to a grieving woman. If I couldn't support the family, maybe I needed professional help. The threat was clear. Fall in line or be sent away. Ashley must have been listening because she appeared moments later, tears streaming down her face. She clutched her belly, claiming the stress was causing cramping. Dad immediately rushed her to the couch, shooting me a disgusted look. As Mom fussed over Ashley, I caught a glimpse of satisfaction in her eyes. She'd won again. Every attempt to reveal the truth just made me look worse. That night, unable to sleep, I heard voices from upstairs. Ashley was on the phone, speaking quietly but urgently. I crept up the basement stairs, straining to hear. She was talking to Brandon. That much was clear. Something about needing more time. About the family being worth more than they thought. She mentioned life insurance policies, veteran benefits, social security payments. The numbers she quoted made my stomach turn. They were planning to milk my family for everything. I heard her say something about keeping me under control, about maybe needing to accelerate their timeline if I kept causing problems. The implied threat chilled me. What would acceleration mean? Would I have an accident like Theo? The next day, I went to school counselor Mrs. Rodriguez, desperate for an adult who might listen. But Ashley had gotten there first. Mrs. Rodriguez mentioned her friend from prenatal yoga had told her about our family situation. She expressed concern about my mental health, suggested I focus on my studies instead of causing stress for a pregnant widow. I was completely isolated. Ashley had cut off every avenue of support, turned every potential ally against us. Even teachers looked at me with pity now, whispering about the troubled kid who couldn't accept his brother's girlfriend. Emma, my cousin who worked at CVS, was one of the few family members still speaking to me. She texted that she'd noticed something odd. Ashley had been picking up prescriptions, but they were for anxiety medication, not prenatal vitamins. The prescriptions were under the name A. Brennan, not A. Morrison. It was another piece of evidence, but what good would it do? Ashley would claim it was a pharmacy error. My parents would believe her over me. Still, I saved the text, adding it to the growing collection on my hidden phone. My old baseball coach, Mr. Torres, pulled me aside after practice. He'd taught both Theo and me, had known our family for years. He mentioned Ashley had approached him about selling some of Theo's memorabilia for baby expenses. Something about it felt wrong to him. I carefully shared some of my concerns, and for once, someone listened. Coach Torres said he'd keep an eye out, maybe ask around. It wasn't much, but having one adult who didn't think I was crazy felt like a lifeline. That small hope was crushed 2 days later, when Coach Torres received a formal complaint through the school. Someone had reported him for showing inappropriate interest in a student's family affairs. He was instructed to maintain professional boundaries and limit interactions with me to baseball only. Ashley's reach extended everywhere. She'd systematically destroyed Jackie's life, isolated me, and wrapped my parents so tightly around her finger they couldn't see the truth strangling them. Every day she grew bolder, more comfortable in her control. She started redecorating beyond the nursery. Theo's photos came down, replaced with pictures of her and Theo that I'd never seen before, clearly photoshopped, but my parents didn't question them. So Ashley's pregnancy belly is basically a costume shop rental that changes sizes like she's playing dress up every morning. The woman's treating this scam like she's method acting for a really twisted community theater production where the audience is one grieving family. She donated his clothes to charity, keeping only a few items she wore around the house like trophies. Jackie's room became her personal storage space. I watched Ashley sort through my sister's belongings, keeping what she wanted and trashing the rest. When I protested, Mom said Ashley needed space for baby supplies, and Jackie had abandoned her things anyway. The family dynamics shifted completely around Ashley. She controlled dinner conversations, directed weekend plans, decided who could visit and when. My parents deferred to her on everything, terrified of upsetting the pregnant mother of their grandchild. I started noticing physical changes in my parents. Mom looked exhausted, stress lines deepening around her eyes. Dad moved like he was carrying a heavy weight. They were calling themselves to keep Ashley happy, working extra hours to afford all the baby preparations she demanded. Meanwhile, Ashley bloomed. New clothes appeared weekly. She went to expensive salons, claiming the baby made her hair difficult to manage. She'd convinced Dad to add her to his credit cards for emergency expenses. The charges I glimpsed on statements left me breathless. One evening I overheard her on another call with Brandon. She was laughing, describing my parents as easier marks than the last ones. She mentioned something about insurance policies, about waiting until after the baby was supposedly born to make certain claims. The plan became clearer. Ashley would fake a pregnancy for 9 months, then claim a stillbirth or late miscarriage. She'd milk the tragedy for sympathy and money, then gradually distance herself from the family, while keeping access to whatever benefits she could claim as the mother of Theo's child. It was diabolical in its simplicity. Who would question a grieving mother who'd lost both her fiancé and baby? Who would demand proof of a pregnancy that ended in tragedy? She'd walk away with hundreds of thousands in insurance and benefits, leaving my family destroyed. I had to do something, but what? Every move I made, Ashley countered. Every ally I found, she turned against me. Even now, I could feel the walls closing in. The basement felt more like a prison each night. My parents looked at me with disappointment and suspicion. 3 weeks before Ashley's supposed due date, everything accelerated. She claimed the doctor wanted to induce early due to complications. My parents went into overdrive, preparing for the baby's arrival. Dad took time off work. Mom stockpiled supplies. Ashley played her part perfectly, wincing at fake contractions, complaining about back pain, crying hormonal tears. She had my parents waiting on her hand and foot, too afraid to leave her alone in case labor started. That's when my grandfather called. Theo's namesake, a Korean War veteran who'd been too sick to travel for the funeral. He'd been following the family drama from afar, and something didn't sit right with him. He wanted to come visit, to meet the woman carrying his great-grandchild. Ashley tried to discourage the visit, claiming stress wasn't good for the baby, but grandfather insisted. He'd hired a private investigator, he said, to help with some family genealogy project. The investigator would drive him down. The panic in Ashley's eyes was beautiful. For the first time in months, I saw her genuinely afraid. She couldn't refuse without looking suspicious, but having an investigator in the house terrified her. She spent the next 2 days on damage control. Suddenly, her pregnancy symptoms worsened dramatically. She claimed the stress was sending her into early labor. Dad wanted to take her to the hospital, but she insisted on waiting, saying the doctor told her to labor at home as long as possible. It was a stalling tactic, and I knew it. She was trying to figure out how to handle my grandfather's visit. Brandon came by during one of her Tuesday meetings, and their argument in the car was visible from the street. He gestured angrily at her belly, and she seemed to be pleading with him. That night, Ashley made her biggest mistake yet. In her panic about the investigator, she forgot to maintain her usual careful act. I was in the kitchen when she walked in, moving quickly and easily, no sign of a woman in labor. She saw me and froze. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then she grabbed her belly and moaned, stumbling to a chair, but it was too late. We both knew I'd seen her walking normally. Her mask slipped completely. She leaned forward, speaking quietly but viciously. She told me I had 2 choices: leave quietly, and she'd make sure I got some money from Theo's insurance, or stay and face the consequences. She mentioned how accidents happened, how unstable teens sometimes hurt themselves, how tragic it would be if I followed Theo too soon. The threat was explicit now. I was in real danger, but I also had what I needed: a recording on my hidden phone of Ashley threatening me, admitting to the insurance fraud, confirming everything Jackie and I had suspected. I played dumb, nodding like I was considering her offer. Inside, my mind raced. Grandfather would arrive tomorrow with his investigator. I had evidence on my phone. Jackie had more proof hidden away. The walls were closing in on Ashley, and she knew it. That night, I didn't sleep in the basement. I couldn't risk being cornered down there. Instead, I hid in the garage, clutching my phone with the recording, waiting for dawn and my grandfather's arrival. The morning came with chaos. Ashley claimed she was in active labor, demanding to go to the hospital immediately. My parents scrambled to get ready, but just as they were loading the car, grandfather's town car pulled into the driveway. He stepped out slowly but steadily, his investigator helping him. Behind them, another car arrived. Jackie, looking thin but determined. She'd been in contact with grandfather, sharing everything she'd found. The investigator had verified it all. Ashley saw them through the window, and her face went white. She clutched her belly, moaning loudly, trying to maintain the charade, but grandfather walked right past her, ignoring the performance. He sat at the kitchen table and began laying out documents, marriage certificates, bank records, photos, the previous scam in another state, Brandon's military discharge for fraud, a complete paper trail of Ashley's lies. eyes. My parents stood frozen, looking between the evidence and Ashley. She kept insisting she needed the hospital, that the baby was coming, but something had shifted. Dad's eyes moved from her face to her belly, and I saw doubt creep in for the first time. That's when Emma arrived with her mother, my Aunt Patricia. They'd been comparing notes about Ashley's prescriptions and the prenatal classes she claimed to attend. None of the instructors had ever seen her. The pharmacy confirmed all prescriptions were for anxiety medication, not prenatal vitamins. More family members arrived, drawn by group texts from grandfather. Each brought observations, evidence, pieces of the puzzle. The Tuesday meetings with Brandon, the fake pregnancy belly spotted at the medical supply store, the photoshopped pictures, the lies upon lies upon lies. Ashley's performance grew desperate. She screamed about needing the hospital, about the baby being in distress. But when Dad stepped forward to help her to the car, she backed away. She couldn't go to a hospital. There was no baby to deliver. The room fell silent as everyone realized the truth simultaneously. Mom sank into a chair, face pale. Dad stood still as a statue. Ashley looked around wildly, trapped by her own deception. Then Aunt Patricia stepped forward and grabbed Ashley's belly. The fake pregnancy pad shifted visibly under her shirt. Patricia yanked it partially out, revealing the flesh-colored padding Ashley had been wearing for months. The silence exploded into shouting, family members expressing shock, anger, demanding answers. Ashley tried to run, but the investigator blocked the door. She spun around, looking for another exit, but we surrounded her. In that moment, her mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely. The grieving widow, the gentle mother-to-be, the victim, all of it fell away. What remained was a cold, calculating con artist who'd played us all for fools. She straightened up, no longer bothering with the pregnant waddle or pained expressions. Her voice was different too, harder, more confident. She told us we were idiots, marks who'd practically begged to be taken. She laughed about how easy we'd made it, how desperate we'd been to believe her lies. Dad lunged forward, but grandfather stopped him. Violence wouldn't solve this. We had what we needed, evidence, witnesses, and now a room full of family who'd seen the truth revealed. Ashley was finished, and she knew it, but she had one more card to play. She pulled out her phone, threatening to call the police, to claim we were holding her hostage, attacking a pregnant woman. Several family members pulled out their own phones, already recording her confession and the fake pregnancy reveal. The investigator calmly informed her that the police were already on their way. He contacted them before arriving, sharing evidence of the fraud. Ashley's face went from confident to terrified in seconds. She made one last desperate attempt, turning to my parents with tears in her eyes. She claimed she'd lost the baby recently, but was too afraid to tell them. She'd been grieving alone, maintaining the lie out of fear and shame. For a moment, Mom wavered. Then Jackie stepped forward with Theo's laptop. She opened it to show the searches he'd done, the evidence he'd gathered, the email he'd never sent. The timestamp glared from the screen, 2 days before his death. Ashley had known Theo was onto her. She'd known her time was running out. Whether she'd somehow contributed to his accident or simply benefited from tragic timing, we'd never know. The grandfather's only approach here reveals years of experience reading people. The way he completely ignored Ashley's labor performance and just started laying out documents shows someone who's seen through facades before. But we knew she'd moved into our house the very next day, ready to execute her plan. The police arrived as Ashley made one final break for the door. They'd already picked up Brandon at the motel where he was staying. Faced with serious fraud charges, he'd immediately turned on Ashley, providing detailed evidence of their scams across multiple states. As the officers led Ashley away in handcuffs, she looked back one last time, not at my parents, who stood holding each other in shock, not at the family members who'd gathered to support us. She looked at me and Jackie, and for just a moment, I saw something like respect in her eyes. We'd struck her at her own game. It had cost us everything. Jackie's home, her job, her reputation, my sense of security, my relationship with our parents, my normal teenage life. But we'd protected our family from complete destruction. The aftermath was messy. Police interviews, lawyers, recovering what money we could, rebuilding trust with extended family who'd been turned against us, therapy for my parents, who struggled with guilt over how completely they'd been fooled. Jackie moved back home temporarily while getting back on her feet. I got my room back, though it took weeks to feel like mine again. The nursery furniture was donated to a women's shelter, the yellow walls repainted. Slowly, we reclaimed our space from Ashley's influence. But some wounds wouldn't heal quickly. Mom still flinched when she saw pregnant women. Dad obsessively checked bank statements. Jackie had nightmares about being homeless. I jumped at unexpected knocks on the door. We learned Ashley and Brandon had run this scam at least 4 times, targeting military families exclusively. They studied obituaries, social media, and public records to find recent widows or grieving families. They'd stolen over $500,000 combined. The trial would take months, maybe years. But Ashley was being held without bail, deemed a flight risk. Brandon had agreed to testify against her in exchange for a lighter sentence. Their house of cards had finally collapsed. On what would have been Ashley's due date, we held a proper memorial for Theo. Just family and his real friends. No fake tears or manufactured drama. We shared stories, looked at photos, remembered him as he really was. Jackie stood up to speak about her twin, about how he tried to protect us even in death. She thanked him for leaving the evidence that ultimately saved us. She promised to honor his memory by being the protector he'd wanted to be. As we left the cemetery, I noticed Mrs. Chen tending flowers at a nearby grave. She gave us a small nod, a tiny smile. The quiet observers, the ones who'd noticed something wrong when we couldn't see it ourselves, they'd helped save us too. Our family was broken, but not destroyed. Scarred, but still standing. Ashley had taken so much from us, but she hadn't taken everything. We still had each other. We still had the truth. And for the first time in months, we had hope. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, despite all we'd been through. Theo's flag was back in its place of honor. His photos lined the walls again. His memory belonged to us, not to a con artist's narrative. Some nights I still woke up in a panic, thinking I heard Ashley's voice upstairs. Sometimes Mom still set an extra place at dinner before catching herself. Dad still hesitated before trusting anyone new. Jackie still checked the locks obsessively, but we were healing, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. The truth had cost us everything, but lies would have cost us more. Ashley had taught us that. In trying to destroy us, she'd ultimately made us stronger. I thought about Theo often, wondering what he'd think of everything that had happened. I hoped he'd be proud that we'd fought for the truth, that we'd protected each other when he couldn't, that we'd refused to let a stranger steal his legacy along with everything else. The last I heard, Ashley was facing 20 years in prison, multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy across state lines. Brandon got 5 years for cooperation. Their victims were slowly getting restitution, though most of the money was gone. But justice wasn't really about the money or even the prison time. It was about the truth finally coming to light, about families like ours learning to recognize the predators who target grief, about making sure Ashley and Brandon could never do this again. As I write this, it's been 6 months since Ashley's arrest. Jackie has a new job in her own apartment. My parents are in counseling and slowly rebuilding their lives. I'm applying to colleges. My grades recovered from that terrible year. We don't talk about Ashley much anymore. She's become a cautionary tale, a reminder to trust but verify, to protect each other even when it costs everything. She's the reason we're more careful now, but also closer. Trauma bonds people in unexpected ways. Sometimes I bike past the cemetery and see fresh flowers on Theo's grave. Not from us. We know when each other visits. I like to think it's from someone whose life he touched, someone who remembers him for who he really was, not who Ashley pretended he was. Our family survived a predator. We're scarred but not broken, wiser but not cynical. And every day we choose to honor Theo's Theo's memory by living with the integrity Ashley tried to steal from us. It's the best revenge we could ask for. A life well lived despite her worst efforts. The house is quiet now, but it's a peaceful quiet. Not the suffocating silence of secrets and lies, but the calm of truth finally spoken. We're still learning how to be a family without Theo, still healing from Ashley's wounds, but we're doing it together, and that makes all the difference. The district attorney's office was smaller than I expected. Grandfather's investigator sat beside us as we presented the complete evidence package. The prosecutor examined each document methodically. Ashley's marriage certificate to Brandon, bank records showing their joint accounts, screenshots of the previous scam from 2 years ago. She nodded as she reviewed Brandon's military discharge papers for fraud. The charges would be serious. Fraud, identity theft, forgery. The prosecutor explained the process while I watched Mom's hands shake in her lap. Dad kept his arm around her, but his own face showed the strain of the past months. Ashley made her desperate play the next morning. She arrived at our house claiming she'd miscarried due to the stress we'd caused. She held medical paperwork that could have been from any clinic, anywhere. Mom hesitated at the door, that familiar doubt creeping back into her eyes. Dad stepped forward, his voice steady despite everything. He asked for verification from her actual doctor. Ashley's face changed, the mask slipping as she realized this tactic wouldn't work anymore. She refused to provide any real documentation. When she tried to push past them into the house, our entire family stood united in blocking her. Jackie positioned herself protectively near me. Grandfather leaned on his cane but didn't budge. Even Aunt Patricia, who'd driven down to support Ashley just weeks ago, now stood firmly with us. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Ashley's behavior grew increasingly erratic as she realized her con was truly over. She paced the driveway, alternating between tears and threats, demanding money to disappear. The extended family had gathered by then. Cousins, aunts, uncles, all drawn by grandfather's messages about what was happening. Through the living room window, Theo's photos watched over us. Ashley still wore his class ring on her thumb, a final insult to his memory. Police cars pulled up just as Brandon's car screeched into view. He jumped out, face red with anger, shouting about Ashley owing him his cut. The officers moved quickly to separate them, but not before Brandon's words confirmed everything. He admitted loudly that Ashley had never been pregnant, that they'd specifically targeted Theo for his deployment benefits. More truth spilled out in the driveway. Ashley had researched military death benefits extensively before Theo's deployment. She'd encouraged him to increase his life insurance coverage, playing the caring girlfriend, planning their future together. One of Theo's military buddies, Jake, had driven down after hearing about the situation. He provided recordings from his phone, conversations where Ashley had asked detailed questions about death benefits at a bar near base, which he thought showed her caring about worst-case scenarios. The investigator presented one final piece of evidence. Ashley had never been on the visitor log at the base the day she claimed to have last seen Theo. Security footage proved she'd been 2 states away with Brandon at a casino. Every alibi, every story, every tear had been calculated manipulation. Officers arrested Ashley in our driveway. As they placed handcuffs on her wrists, her facade completely dropped. No more grieving widow act, no more fake pregnancy waddle, just a cold-eyed criminal who'd terrorized our family for months. Neighbors stood on their lawns recording everything on their phones. Brandon immediately offered to cooperate with authorities. He provided documentation of their previous schemes, detailed records of their planning, evidence of Ashley's obsession with military benefits. His desperation to avoid serious jail time made him an eager witness against her. The house felt strange after they took Ashley away. We stood in the living room, surrounded by the remnants of her deception. The nursery upstairs painted soft yellow for a baby that never existed. Jackie's jewelry box, emptied of pieces Ashley had claimed. Theo's belongings, scattered and sold, some still missing. That evening, we began the slow process of reclaiming our home. Jackie retrieved Theo's baseball trophies from their hiding place in the garage, setting them back on the shelf where they belonged. Mom found more of his photos tucked away in closets, pictures Ashley had hidden because they didn't fit her narrative. Mrs. Chen brought over a casserole, patting my hand as she left. Other neighbors followed throughout the week, offering food and support. The same community Ashley had tried to turn against us now rallied around our family. From jail, Ashley continued her manipulation attempts. She made threats to correctional officers about harming herself, but they recognized the pattern. The prosecutor informed us these were common tactics from con artists trying to gain sympathy or special treatment. We learned more about Ashley's past through the investigation. Her own mother, located by authorities, revealed Ashley had been estranged for years after stealing from multiple family members. She refused to post bail, telling prosecutors her daughter needed to face consequences for once. The evidence against Ashley mounted daily. Grandfather's lawyer subpoenaed bank records showing Ashley had accessed Theo's online banking after his death. She deposited his final paycheck and bonus into an account shared with Brandon. Digital forensics proved the theft conclusively. Jackie slowly moved some belongings back home while maintaining her apartment. She needed space to heal, but wanted to support our parents through the legal process. I got my room back, though it took time to feel comfortable there again. The yellow nursery walls were repainted within days. Brandon's cooperation revealed the full scope of their crimes. They'd run similar scams in 3 other states, always targeting military families. They studied obituaries and social media to identify recent widows or grieving families. The total theft exceeded $500,000 across all victims. During a recorded jail call, Ashley finally broke. Speaking to her mother, she admitted everything: the fake pregnancy, the marriage to Brandon, targeting Theo specifically for his benefits. The recording would become key evidence in her trial. Community members began returning Theo's possessions they'd found in pawn shops and secondhand stores. Each item came back with reverence: his watch, his signed baseball, his leather jacket. People wanted to help restore what Ashley had stolen. The military posthumously honored Theo with a commendation. The investigation had revealed new details about the training accident. He'd died trying to save others, pushing fellow soldiers out of harm's way. This truth, buried under Ashley's lies, finally came to light. Mom and Dad started attending therapy together. The therapist specialized in fraud victims and helped them process both their grief over Theo and their guilt about believing Ashley. Some sessions included Jackie and me, working to rebuild trust as a family. Ashley's preliminary hearing revealed she faced up to 20 years in prison, multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy across state lines. The judge denied bail, considering her a flight risk given the evidence of previous scams in other states. Local news picked up the story as a cautionary tale about romance scams targeting grieving families. They interviewed our family briefly, but we kept it focused on warning others rather than seeking attention. No sensationalism, just facts that might help other families avoid similar predators. The prosecutor offered Ashley a plea deal: 5 years if she pled guilty, and provided restitution to all victims. Brandon had already agreed to testify against her in exchange for a reduced sentence of 2 years. Their criminal partnership was dissolving as they turned on each other. We established a scholarship fund in Theo's name for veterans' children. It felt like a positive way to honor his memory, turning our pain into something that could help others. The first fundraiser was small, just family and close friends, but it raised enough to help one student that year. Jackie found a new job through one of Theo's military friends who owned a business. She'd lost so much: her previous job, her car, her reputation in some circles, but she was rebuilding steadily, maintaining healthy boundaries while staying connected to family. Emma, who'd risked her job to help expose Ashley, became closer to our family through the ordeal. She'd lost her employee discount for refusing to serve Ashley, but she said Theo teaching her to ride a bike as kids meant she owed him the truth. Her loyalty during our darkest time bonded us. Ashley eventually accepted the plea deal: 5 years in prison, required restitution to victims, and a permanent criminal record that would prevent her from running similar scams. Brandon testified against her as promised, detailing their methods and previous victims. 1 year after Ashley's arrest, we held a proper memorial service for Theo. This time, it was filled with people who genuinely loved him: his military buddies, childhood friends, extended family who now knew the truth. No fake tears or manufactured drama, just real grief and real love. I spoke at the service about how Theo had tried to protect us even after death. His laptop searches, his drafted email warning about Ashley, the evidence he'd gathered, all of it had ultimately saved us from complete destruction. Jackie placed his flag in a place of honor at the service. Our parents now facilitate a support group for families targeted by grief scammers. It meets monthly at the community center, providing resources and recognition tactics to help others avoid what we experienced. They've helped 3 families identify potential scams in the past 6 months. The house feels like home again. Theo's photos line the walls, his flag flies outside on special occasions, his memory honored properly. We're different than before, more cautious perhaps, but also closer. Trauma had bonded us in unexpected ways. Jackie maintains her own apartment but visits regularly. She's rebuilt her career and started dating someone who understands her past. Mom no longer flinches at seeing pregnant women, though the healing took time. Dad doesn't obsessively check bank statements anymore, trusting but verifying. I'm headed to college in the fall. My grades recovered after that terrible year. The essay about our experience helped me earn a scholarship, though I focused on resilience and truth rather than sensationalizing the trauma. Some wounds have healed, others remain tender. We don't discuss Ashley often now. She serves her time while we serve ours, a life sentence of sorts, learning to trust again, to grieve properly, to honor Theo without the shadow of her deception. The veteran scholarship in his name has helped 2 more students this year. Sometimes I still bike past the cemetery and see fresh flowers on Theo's grave from people whose lives he touched. His legacy isn't what Ashley tried to manufacture, but what he actually was: a soldier who died saving others, a brother who tried to protect his family, a good man remembered properly. Our family survived a predator. We're scarred but not broken, wiser but not cynical. Every day we choose to honor Theo's memory by living with the integrity Ashley tried to steal. The price of truth was steep, but the cost of lies would have been our souls. The peaceful quiet in our home now isn't the suffocating silence of secrets, but the calm of truth spoken and justice served. We're still learning to be a family without Theo, still healing from wounds both old and new, but we're doing it together, and that makes all the difference. This is the end of the story. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this.